Good evening, everyone. It's so quiet.
I know it is. I was waiting for the music.
I know. I was about to text Erica and go, am I connected?
I thought the same thing.
That's why I had to break the silence to make sure my equipment was working.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
I can't hear.
Ooh, 7:17. I haven't taken a look yet to see whether or not we have a quorum. But in the meantime, I'm going to call our meeting to order because it is 7:17. Welcome, everybody, to our April meeting for the Board of Directors, San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. May I get a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Julie Chutney.
Here.
Jay Dixit.
Here.
Hi.
Hi. Karen Sarsa-Diaz. She is on, but she's connecting to audio. Bill Stewart.
Here.
Chris is not going to be here. Trish Gonzalez. Richard Centeno.
I'm here.
Joseph Wong.
Here.
Ina Wright. Ina, I see you. Bruce Crickshank. No Bruce? I thought I saw Bruce.
It looks like he's connecting.
Oh, Bruce. Okay.
Hi, you guys.
Hi, Tina.
Hi.
Philip Loy.
Here.
Sam Yee.
Here.
And Paula Rodarte. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, let's take a look at our agenda for tonight. There is one thing that I would like to add to the agenda based on Dara's recommendation, and that is a presentation of the E2 contract amendment. Is that correct? That's correct, right? Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to ask a board member for a motion to add presentation of the E2 contract amendment to tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you so much. Do I have a second? I think I saw your hand, Tina.
Second.
Okay, I did see Tina's hand. Thank you so much, Tina. All right.
Welcome.
Any questions regarding this? Okay, all in favor of adding presentation of the E2 contract amendment to the agenda, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Any abstentions? Great. Okay, thank you very much. So we will add that to tonight's agenda. Do we have any public input tonight?
Yeah.
Carl Argila.
Great. Okay, thank you so much, Carl. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Eric, can you give me an audio?
Yes, we can hear you.
That's great. Thanks, Erica. Good evening again, board. My name is Carl Argila. I am the father of Cavan Argila, an intellectually disabled deaf client at the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. Tonight's San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center board meeting is, including my comments, is being recorded under the provisions of the Bagley-Keene Act and will be posted for public review on my blog at www.sgprc.net. And by the way, your April meeting just went public earlier today. So first of all, I do want to acknowledge again, Jessie Romero, thank you for her assistance in resolving some problems regarding my son Gerardo's self-determination program. It's always good to be able to maintain an amiable and professional working relationship with people at the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. Once again, board, I am requesting that you terminate your conservatorship of my son, Cavan Argila. Your conservatorship of my son is inflicting grave harm on him. For example, my son has experienced an over 150-pound weight gain during the period of time that you have been his conservator. Why? Because of your forced medication of my son with medications which have metabolic effects. And worse yet, we have an agreed to IPP, which states that you're going to be providing nutrition and exercise services for my son, and you haven't implemented those as yet. 10 months. As you know, board, a class action lawsuit was filed against you a few years ago on behalf of my children and 4,998 other deaf clients. You signed a settlement agreement. Part of that settlement agreement was that you would provide a service coordinator for deaf clients. And at the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center, that person is Sylvia Monod. For reasons unknown, you've changed my son Cavan's service coordinator to Chrissy Heiler. Ms. Heiler has no experience or training in the field of deafness. How can you get away with that, board? Why isn't
it's Carl's on.
Oh, God.
I would like to remind the board once again that on June 27, 2023, during a mediation session, Dr. Weller agreed that the service agency will attempt to have claimant assigned a deaf service coordinator. My son still does not have a deaf service coordinator. So these are the same issues I bring to you month after month, board. And I hope you will consider them seriously as we continue to move through a legal process at probate court. Finally, I'm requesting that the official minutes of this board meeting accurately state that I'm requesting that the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center terminate their conservatorship of my son, Cavan Argila. So thank you again for your time this evening, board.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have anyone else for public input tonight?
No, we don't.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So we're going to move on with our agenda today. We do have a couple of items of business that we do need to get through. But once again, as a reminder, tonight is a training for the full board and all of our valued guests and staff here. So we're going to try and get through what we need to get through in terms of order of business and then have our wonderful presentation. So to start us off tonight will be our CFO, Dara Meixel, with our financial report, and then that added E2 amendment. Dara?
Yes, good evening. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see my screen okay? Okay, so good evening, President Chutney, members of the board, regional center staff, and community members. Tonight, I am presenting the financial statements, which comprise of the operation and purchase of service payments through February 29th, 2024. This report was reviewed and approved at the Executive Finance Committee on April 10th. In our E1 allocation, the 23-24 was over 49.5 million, with projected expenditures of just over 48 million. Our year-to-date is expenditures are over 27 million, with projected remaining expenditures of 20 million, which leaves about 1.4 million unencumbered in regular operations. As part of the E1, we received fully funded Family Resource Center, Foster Grandparent Senior Companion, CPP, and DC closure for the workload that goes into that process, and we anticipate spending all of those funds by the end of the fiscal year. Does anyone have any questions in terms of our operations before I move to the next slide? Okay, so I'll move to the next slide. Here are our purchase of service allocation for the E1, and we have a total of 424 million. That was a part of that E1 allocation. The current month's expenditures amount to just over 39 million, which brings the year-to-date expenditures of over 245 million. The remaining projected expenditures and late bills are just over 176 million, which leaves an unencumbered amount at this point of 2.2 million. We received the CPP funding in the E1, and we expect to receive the CRDP and the HCBS funds in the E2 allocation. Does anyone have any questions in terms of the purchase of service before I move to the next slide? Okay. And these are the details that comprise of the data that is included in the first two slides for both operations and purchase of service. And if I'm going too fast, please speak up so I can slow down. This is our statement of financial position. And this is the graph of our statement of financial position. And here is our purchase of service and our operation surplus in graph format. Does anyone have any questions regarding the financial statement? Okay.
Okay, not hearing any questions or comments there for Dara. As a reminder to the board, this was presented at our Executive Finance Committee 2 weeks ago, and the committee did approve the financial report as presented. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to pass it back over to you for that E2.
Thank you, and thank you. So this is actually going to go over the A1 first, and then the E2 after that. So we presented the E1 preliminary contract. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Excuse me. Executive Finance, and this is our A1 is the allocation for 24-25, and this is showing our base in operations and both base in operations and purchase of service. This does not include any policy items. We will be seeing more of the policy items in the A1 contract, which we will see later in the year, probably maybe in July. It is normally we don't receive this as early as we have received it, but there has been some delays in these contracts being processed, and so they are rolling the contracts out earlier, and so with the hopes of getting these contracts back to DDS for processing through the Department of General Services. Does anyone have any questions regarding the A1? Okay, if there are no further questions, I kindly request for your consideration to approve the signing of the contract for the A1.
I'll make the motion to approve the contract A1 as presented.
Great, thank you, Trish. I didn't realize that I was on mute. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Tina. Okay. Do we have any questions or discussion about this motion for the A2?
A1.
A1.
It's a lot of alphabet letters in my head.
It is, yes.
Okay, not hearing or seeing anything. Board members all in favor of approving, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful. Thank you so much. That motion carries.
Thank you. And lastly is our E2 allocation. And I appreciate you considering the presentation tonight on the E2. Let me go ahead and share my screen one more time. And I'm going through these pretty quickly, just for the interest of time. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out or ask them in the chat, and I can happily answer any questions you may have. As you can see here, this is the allocation for the E2. This is showing for items that were not included in the E1 allocation. So this is the state across the state, the allocations. And these are policy items such as CPP funds, the CRDP ongoing caseload, operations for CPP, some policy items and miscellaneous. This is for operations. And moving to this next slide here is for additional funding in the family home agency, which expansion, which was excluded from the E1 and is now captured here in the E2, and some additional promoting workforce stability, as well as some regular CPP ongoing ops for CPP and CRDP. I'm going to have to stop sharing for a second and then switch over to the next slide. Sometimes my functions get a little odd. Okay. And so here is the E2 POS allocation. There is some additional funding in our base allocation that will be provided, as well as some HCBS funding and CPP funding. And this is in reference to the report that I previously showed in the financial statement. These two areas were missing from that initial funding in the first E1, so they will be captured in the E2 allocation. Does anyone have any questions regarding any of the slides that I have shown?
Dara, just a quick question or quick clarification maybe for the rest of the board members. It's interesting to see the amounts for the different regional centers, and I don't know if any other board members might be curious as to why the numbers are different for each regional center.
There could be a lot of times the difference is in the size of the regional center, the individuals that they're serving. So if, for example, let's say Inland Regional Center, I think that they support, I think it's over 50,000 individuals. And so we have, we're getting close to about 17,000 individuals. So that's vastly different than in comparison to Inland. And so their funding would be higher because they are supporting a greater number of individuals than we are. That could also come into play with their CPP projects. They may have some larger projects than us or smaller projects. It all varies across the state. There will be some fundings that you see as pretty standard. Sometimes there are policy items that are similar across the state, but it all varies on the size of the regional center or the projects that are assigned to that regional center at that time or that year.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's interesting. We talk a lot about how there are 21 regional centers across the state, and so sometimes there's a little bit of an assumption that they're all about the same size or whatever, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. I've learned actually through ARCA, as some of them are considered mega centers like Inland and San Diego, and then some of them are classified, Jesse, as mini or something. They're just tiny, just by virtue of the population, population density. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody sort of understood that.
No, and that was a great question, because it does look, would be questionable when you're looking at it across the state. Like, why are we getting this much and everyone else is getting a various amount? So that's a very good question. So thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Any other questions?
Any other?
Okay, I kindly request that you the board considers the signing of the E2 allocation as well.
Great. Okay. So do we have a motion to sign the E2 allocation.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have a second? Philip, I saw your hand. Thank you so much. All right. Any further discussion or questions for Dara? Okay, not hearing or seeing any. All in favor of approval for signature, please say aye. Or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, we are going to move right along to the review of some contracts that were presented originally to the Executive Finance Committee. And then as that committee, we have recommended those come to the full board for their approval. So take it away, Tim.
All right, thank you so much. So good evening, President Chutney, members of the board, community members, DDS, and regional center staff. As President Chutney mentioned, I'd like to present 5 service agreements this evening in the order listed in this evening's agenda for the board's consideration for approval. The first service agreement is with Lanterman Developmental Services, LLC, also known as People's Care, for a community crisis home. People's Care Developmental Services provides a wide range of services to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Centers area. That includes residential, specialized residential, day services, behavior intervention, and transportation. A community crisis home is a licensed adult residential facility that is certified by the Department of Developmental Services, provides 24-hour non-medical care to individuals with developmental disabilities who also are receiving regional center services and are in need of crisis intervention services because if not, they would otherwise be at risk for admission to an acute crisis center, state developmental center, and out-of-state placement, possibly an acute care hospital or acute psychiatric hospital. The focus on these programs is on stabilization and individual goals so that individuals can transition to a long-term placement as quickly and safely as possible. The subject of this particular contract is with the Lomitas home. It was developed with community placement plan funding from fiscal year 2021 and currently serves 4 individuals that could be served by any of the 21 regional centers. So this is a statewide resource. Due to the needs of the individuals in this home, the home provides an enhanced staffing that includes additional direct support professionals, a qualified behavior modification professionals, registered behavior technicians, board certified behavior analysts, licensed mental health consultants, psychiatrists, and other professionals that are needed to implement each individual's IPP or individual program plan. So unless there are any other questions, I'd like to ask the board for their consideration for the service agreement.
Great. Okay. All right. As Tim said, this is the first of 5. So this one is for People's Care. Do we have a motion to approve this contract as presented?
I will make the motion to present
Thank you,
So-
Trish.
as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bill. Okay. Any questions for Tim on this contract? All right. All in favor of approving as presented, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right.
All right, great, thank you. So in your agenda, the second service agreement is also with People's Care, but this one is for a specialized residential home for adults. The Covina Hills home is licensed as an adult residential facility. The individuals living in the Covina Hills home have severe behavioral challenges and may be forensically involved, meaning they could be on diversion, probation, potentially be also going through the legal process. In addition to their intellectual and developmental disability, they could also have a mental health diagnosis. This particular home has both what is called delayed egress and secure perimeter. So the doors have a delayed egress. When they go to the door, it does open, but it does allow time for staff to come and assist that individual and potentially redirect them. The Covina Hills home was also developed with community placement funds, but this one was from fiscal year 2012-2013 and serves 4 individuals that are also served by the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. Due to the needs of the individuals, this home also provides enhanced staffing that includes those additional direct support professionals, qualified behavior modification professionals, registered behavior technicians, licensed mental health consultants, psychiatrists, and other professionals such as RNs, LVNs that are needed to implement their individual program plan. So unless there are any questions, I'd like to ask the board for their consideration for this service agreement.
Okay, all right. Do we have a motion to accept this contract as presented?
I make a motion.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Ooh, I think Bill just got in there. Is that right? Okay. Any other questions for Tim? Okay. All in favor of approving the contract as presented, please say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Okay, so based on the agenda, the third service agreement is, again, with Landerman Developmental Services, LLC, also known as People Care, and this is for a second community crisis home. Much like the Lomitas home that we earlier discussed, the Covina home is also licensed as an adult residential facility and is certified by the Department of Developmental Services, as well as also monitored by the California Department of Developmental Services. The individuals living in the Covina home also have severe behavioral challenges, as well as also forensic issues. This particular home was developed also with community placement plan funds from fiscal year 2021, and also serves as that statewide resource for up to 4 individuals. Again, the focus on these homes is that short-term stabilization of the individuals, also addressing those individual goals so that individual can transition into a more long-term placement, such as that specialized residential program we were just talking about. Again, due to the needs of the individuals that live in this home, the home does provide enhanced staffing that includes those additional direct support professionals, other qualified behavior modification professionals, registered behavior technicians, licensed mental health consultants, psychiatrists, and other professionals needed to implement that individual program plan. So unless there are any other questions, I'd like to ask the board for their consideration for this particular service agreement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is a very busy vendor for us tonight. Okay. Do we have a motion?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Bruce.
What's the difference between a behavior problem and a forensic issue?
It's a great question. So we do have individuals that may have maladaptive behaviors. Maybe it's aggression or self-interest behavior, maybe elopement, maybe they're a danger to themselves. So those would be kind of classified as a behavioral condition that needs to be remediated or ameliorated. Individuals, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that may be forensically involved, maybe those individuals that might be on probation. They could be on what's called diversion. So there is a penal code 1001.2 that does allow individuals with intellectual disabilities who may be charged with a misdemeanor to be diverted. This allows individuals through the IPP process to be able to have different services and supports in place that are more geared towards individuals with those intellectual and developmental disabilities, and receive that treatment and support. Once they've completed that process of diversion, the case actually would be removed and it wouldn't go on their record. So we do have a lot of individuals. We actually have a dedicated forensic specialist at our regional center that assists individuals that may be involved with the court system. And so we can advocate for them to potentially be on this diversion, or if they have other aspects related to any kind of something that they may have been convicted of or may be facing, we're able to assist them through other resources in these particular types of homes. It diverts them from potentially going to jail or being incarcerated.
Right. Say if our services are successful, then the person would not be stigmatized with a misdemeanor or some kind of legal action.
Exactly. If they were able to qualify for that diversion, yes. I mean, we do have people that may be on probation. We work very closely with probation to ensure that they have the appropriate supports and services. And that's why when we talk about the number of individuals, the additional staffing, the qualified behavior modification staff, the psychiatrists, the RNs and LVNs, because we really had to look at the individual as a whole and see what types of issues may have related to that person becoming involved with the court legal system.
Okay, thanks.
Sam has his hand up.
Yeah. You have any idea how many classes we have now in the homes?
In these particular homes, Sam?
Yeah.
All of our community crisis homes are full. Again, these are a statewide resource, so they do.
How many classes?
Our particular clients?
Yeah.
I believe, Lucina, in our 2 community crisis homes, we don't have anyone right now, right? In these 2 homes, again, because it's a statewide resource.
Yeah, there other regional centers are using those resources because that's really what we developed it for California.
Then why do we have to pay for them?
We don't pay for them. The other regional centers do.
Oh,
Yeah, so each regional center, even if it's in our area, they have to pay for the placement and the funds. We don't pay for that portion. The other regional centers do. We may pay if there's a vacant bed. I gotta say that we may pay if there's a vacant bed, but we try to make sure those vacancies are filled because they're really beneficial. And it is time limited. They can only stay there for a maximum of 18 months. Yeah, so it's not permanent.
What are we voting for?
What are we paying for?
What are we voting?
Oh,
we're voting for the contract to be approved by the board.
Well, yeah, but if we don't have anybody in here from our regional center, why do we have to pay?
Why do we have because we're still the vendoring regional center. Our contracts are typically only 3 years old, so every 3 years we renew it. We set the rates. The other regional centers will pay them. We set one of the rates. The other rate is set by it's really complicated. The other rate is set by the person and how many services they need. So we're required to do a contract every 3 years. Because we agreed with the state to develop a resource for California, we're required to do the contract, the agreements, set the facility rate, and then the regional centers set the client rate. It's a little complicated, but it works.
And to your point, Sam, the contract also really sets the requirements for all these different staff, and the other regional centers mirror that or utilize that to justify that payment. So we do share those contracts with them, and there is always that potential. I mean, we could have a need for these resources, and at that point in time, we would have to come to the board. So we're able to, through this process, being able to act as the representative for the other 20 regional centers in this particular contracts.
And we are there, Sam. We monitor it. Our QA staff has to monitor. Yeah, we have to monitor it. So even though the folks there aren't people that we serve, we still are required to monitor it because it's in our area and we have the contract. So we still have to make sure that the staff are treating the other folks okay, that the services are being provided, that they have the staffing that they all agreed to. So even though they're not the people in our regional center, we got to make sure the needs are still being met regardless of who's there. Because that's really the intent, right? We want to make sure all Californians' needs are met. And so this is one way of doing it. We assist in monitoring to make sure that what they said they were going to do, they're actually doing.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you for the question.
Actually, that's a great question. I was like,
Yeah.
That's a good question. So, especially since,
Okay. I have a question. Okay, what if these special clients are in these homes? Say, for instance, if one of them have like a serious agency that needs to go to the hospital or the doctors or whatever, do they have like a staff member that will take them to the doctors, or do they have to have a special kind of person that comes to pick them up with the client and the staff to take the client to the doctor to whatever their issue problem is, if they get real sick or what?
Well, yeah, I mean, always with any provider or any of us, if you had a medical emergency, the staff would call 911. But all of our individuals are eligible for those medical benefits, whether they be through a private insurance or through their Medi-Cal. So the staff in the home assist them in coordinating the various medical visits, their medications, assisting them in taking their medications, doing any kind of follow-up with any kind of specialists. And they do accompany those individuals to the hospital so they can assist in advocating with them, for any of their medical needs. So it is, these intensive type of programs. Actually, all of our service providers do provide that level of service where they assist individuals in accessing the appropriate medical services and dental services as well, and then utilizing the benefits with which they have been afforded here, through the state.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So let's, do I have a motion to accept the contract for People's Care Cavina as presented?
I'll make the motion to accept it as presented.
Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, I don't know who got it. I'm gonna let Erica handle that one. All right. Any further questions? Just to make sure we follow Robert's rules of law. Meetings.
Further questions? Yeah.
All in favor of approving the contract as presented, please say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Motion carries. All right.
All right, great. So the fourth service agreement is for Vocational Innovation South Incorporated. This is for transportation as an additional component and a transportation aid to their current center-based program. Vocational Innovation South has been providing day program services to individuals served by the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center since 2017. They also provide similar services to individuals through other programs with Regional Center of Orange County, Eastern Los Angeles Regional Center, and Inland Regional Center. They currently have 3 day programs with the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. This transportation service serves as that additional component, and the transportation aid that is the subject of the agreement supports those individuals that attend their center-based day programs throughout our area. Individuals served by this program could be from a state developmental center or other institutional setting. They may also be identified, Bruce, as forensic, be involved in the criminal justice system. They also serve individuals that may, Tina, require a restricted healthcare plan. So they may have a condition, maybe it's diabetes, or maybe they use some sort of inhaler. They may have some other condition that requires a nurse to develop a healthcare plan so individuals know how to assist them. These individuals reside in the community crisis homes we talked about a little bit earlier. They may also reside in what are called enhanced behavioral service homes, specialized homes that also were discussed this evening. So as a result of that, these individuals that attend this program need those additional services and supports for transportation to get to and from the program and during the program day. The transportation services are provided by the employees of the program and utilizing their personal vehicles or the company's vehicles. The provider currently transports 18 individuals, 3 of which have a transportation aid. Those are all individuals served by the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. So unless there are any other questions, I'd like to ask the board for their consideration to approve this agreement.
All right. Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to accept this contract as presented?
I will make the motion.
To accept the minutes.
Thank you, Philip. I got Philip on that one. Do we have a second?
I'll take second.
Thank you. All right, any questions for Tim for this contract? Not hearing or seeing any. All in favor of approving as presented, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, 4 down, 1 to go.
All right, great. Thank you guys so much for your patience. The last service agreement is for Elwyn, California, for a specialized residential facility. Elwyn, California has been providing residential work and day program services to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in California since 2005. They assisted with developing programs to meet the needs of individuals that moved out of Agnew's Developmental Center, which is up in the San Jose area, Lanterman Developmental Center here in Pomona, Fairview down in Costa Mesa, and Sonoma State Developmental Center up in the Bay Area. Elwyn currently operates 5 specialized residential programs here in the San Gabe Pomona Regional Centers area. The Elwyn Orange Grove home, which is the subject of this agreement, has been licensed as an adult residential facility since 2018, and is vendored as a specialized residential facility serving for individuals that are individuals served by San Gabe Pomona Regional Center. The individuals served in this home have an intellectual or developmental disability and display those severe behavioral challenges, but they may also have sensory impairments such as visual or hearing disability, mental health issues, and medical conditions. So in order to meet the needs of the individuals living in this home, the Orange Grove home has enhanced staffing that includes nursing, board certified behavior analysts, licensed mental health professionals, licensed psychiatric technicians, and those additional direct support professionals needed to meet the needs of those individuals. So unless there are any other questions, I'd like to ask the board for their consideration for this service agreement.
All right. Okay. So the last one from Tim tonight is this Elwyn home, California in Orange Grove. Do we have a motion to approve the contract as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Trish. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Joe. All right. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Here.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. All right, that motion also carries. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we're going to turn it over to Hortensia.
Julie,
So much.
I just want to make sure that Sam abstained. Sam, did you mean to abstain? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, President Chutney, Regional Center staff, BDS, and members of the public. I'm presenting to you the contract on your agenda for assessment, consultation, and treatment, for short ACT. Dr. Santos is the psychologist that has been supporting us with our intake process, conducting assessments that help us in bringing in individuals who apply for our services. Just as the program that Tim was talking about that supports with individuals who are forensically involved, she is also very much experienced working with that population, as well as individuals who have complex medical needs and duly diagnosed individuals. She can also support with going out to different locations, assessing in these alternative settings. So we're very happy to be able to secure these additional spots with Dr. Santos. And I would like to request your consideration in approving this contract so that we can continue serving our individuals coming through our intake department. And hopefully we will not have a waiting list eventually once we are able to secure all the psychologists that we need to serve everyone the way that we want to, right? Thank you. Any questions?
Absolutely. Thank you, Hortensia. Okay, do we have a motion? We'll have questions in just a second. If anyone has any, do we have a motion to accept this contract for this psychologist? Like Hortensia said, slots very much needed.
I will make the motion.
Thank you, Trish. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Sam, did I see your hand up to go for the second on that? All right, Sam, you've got the second on that one. Thank you so much. Any questions about this contract? A line of work to shovel anybody into. High school students, college students, psychologists, we need them. All in favor of approving the contract as presented, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Sorry, child.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, motion carries. All right.
I have a question.
You have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Tina.
Okay. You know how like when we start our meetings on time at 7:15, I would like to I would like to say something about that. Like we should always start the meeting, the board directory. We should always start the meeting on time at 7:15 and not as long and then end at a certain time.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we take that under consideration. We try and do our very best to be as efficient as we can. Sometimes they tend to run a little bit longer depending on, just how many things need to come before the board's attention, but we're going to try and do the very best that we can to stay on track.
Yeah, and then whoever else wants to say something, sometimes like people don't get to say what they want to say in the meeting, and I like to have the board to agree on give the person in the meeting a chance to speak up to what they want to say in the meeting. That's what I want. I just thought I would bring it up in the meeting.
Tina, would you like to have a conversation so that I can hear a little bit more about that particular idea about having more opportunities for board members to say what they're thinking? I would like to know a little bit more about that.
Okay, what I'm saying, if on our agenda and stuff, if they see something in it, if they see something come across their mind, then one of the other board members should have a chance to speak up on what they want to prove on it or what they have to say about it. That's what I'm trying to come across of.
Julie, if I may.
Absolutely.
I think Tina's question is a great question that I think we're going to talk about when Michelle comes here in a little bit and talks about training tonight and effective boards. I think your question's right on point, Tina, around kind of those discussions. So I think it might be touched upon in just a little bit with the training tonight. And I think it's a really good conversation to make sure that everyone's feeling included. And one of the things I think we'll see in Michelle's presentation tonight is how are we doing as a regional center, kind of presenting information to everybody, and also how much discussion and times for discussion and active engagement, are we finding that balance in there? So I think it's super timely for your question. I think it's coming up here shortly too.
Okay.
But thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
And I did get a sneak peek of the presentation, and you hit it right on the nose. That's exactly one of the things that Michelle will be discussing tonight. So, okay, we're going to move along then to my report, which is going to be very nice and short and sweet because of our training. But there is one thing that was discussed at our Executive Finance Committee meeting, and we voted to bring it forward to the board for their consideration. So those of you who have been around the regional center and governance for a little while, know that a few years ago, the schedule of monthly meetings for mostly the advisory committees had been changed. And so what we're proposing is that we would like to return to the previous schedule for advisory committee meetings. Does anybody have it to maybe bring it up or give me screen sharing possibilities?
Eric can do a visual maybe, or share with Julie. Eric, do you have a preference?
Alba, can you let Julie share, please?
Yes, you can share now.
Great, thank you so much. Oh gosh, which window is it now? Can't tell. There we go. Okay, so our current schedule is what you see up here and this is in all of your materials in the Google folder in the board packet. So this is the current schedule. RDDF, the Richard D. Davis Foundation, their board meets the first Wednesday of the month. Our vendor advisory committee, Chris, our VAC chair, he's not here tonight, but their meeting happens the first Thursday of the month. That doesn't really affect us too much. The big changes were to, and would be to, the next couple, which would be the Strategic Development Committee. Executive Finance would remain the same. The Community Relations and Legislative Advisory Committee, and then the Advisory Committee for individuals served and their families. So, Executive Finance Committee, that would not change. It would stay on that second Wednesday of the month at 7:15 p.m. Great. Just like our board meetings over here, the fourth Wednesday of the month where we are right now stays the same. The changes are as follows. The Strategic Development Committee, which currently meets on that second Wednesday at 6 p.m. in advance of Executive Finance, would return to its original time slot a couple of years ago to this evening, the fourth Wednesday of the month at 6 p.m., which is the exact same time that the Committee for Individuals Served and Their Families operates. At this time, and historically, we have not had any committee members that are on both of those committees. Strategic Development Advisory Committee and Advisory Committee for Individuals Served and Their Families. And then our Community Relations Legislative Committee, which right now meets on the third Wednesday, would take over their original time slot on the second Wednesday. And this does a couple of major things that I hope the board members can sort of wrap your brains around. The biggest thing is that we would be freeing up some time every month on those Wednesdays for not only our amazing SGPRC staff who come to these meetings, but also for some committee members who would be attending, who right now are actually attending committee meetings or a board meeting 3 Wednesdays a month. And when you consider that we're volunteers, that's quite a lot. So we're very much hoping that that our board members will vote to return to that proposed schedule of committee meetings, freeing up that third Wednesday for staff and certain committee members.
And Julie, if I can add that this would be effective July.
Thank you. Yes. And you can actually, yes. So it would be effective July. We wouldn't do anything before the end of this particular fiscal year. We'll start with the new fiscal year with our meetings in July. So in the July month of July, the Community Relations and Legislative Committee would be then on the second Wednesday, and Strategic Development comes to this fourth Wednesday. Does anybody have any questions, need any sort of clarifications?
But
Go ahead, Tina.
but with any of these meetings or so, when will we be able to have a meeting in there at the regional center? Or are we gonna plan on having meetings at the regional center again, or no?
At this time, we're not contemplating at this time coming back in person. But it's never say never. But so for the foreseeable future, we will be on Zoom.
Oh, okay, because the reason why I ask is because it seems like that we all get together on Zoom and then we hardly ever get to see anybody all at once. That's the reason why I brought up the question.
Yeah. It's something to consider. Go ahead, Philip, you have a question?
Yes, but it's the advisory committee at 6 o'clock and the board of directors are 7:50 on the fourth Wednesday. Would that still be the same or that would change?
That would be the same. So that committee actually doesn't change.
Thank you.
No problem.
Even with the one that I sit on, will it change?
Can you remind me which committee that you're on, Tina?
Huh?
Which committee are you on? I can't recall off the top of my head.
The client service.
That one will stay the same. That one will be still at 6 o'clock on this fourth Wednesday.
Okay.
Sam.
Yeah. Why did you in the first place?
Great question. Okay, so here's a little bit of the backstory of why the change happened in the first place. Under our former leadership, there was a request for that executive director to attend every advisory committee meeting. And so therefore, on the fourth Wednesday of the month, this Wednesday night, there were 2 strategic development and individuals served in their families. So that wasn't possible. And so at the time, the board did agree and approve the change. I'm not sure at that time that whether we really thought about just the domino effect of that, who it would impact, what it would mean for staff and for committee members in terms of just how many Wednesdays a month they might be, dedicating their valuable time. So that's the reason it changed.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
And Julie, if it's helpful, if I may add to, with my leadership style and the way I like to have things, I really like my executive team involved in leadership roles, really working closely with the board and committees. And so I think it really serves a nice purpose to be able to have that engagement, and it allows me the opportunity to be able to attend. Right now, it gets a little tricky on the community relations, which I like to pop into and be available for because of there's a lot of ARCA meetings, a lot of stuff on Wednesday nights. So that kind of clears up that third Wednesday. But I really have a lot of appreciation and respect for all members of the leadership team to have lead roles with the committees in that regard and staying present in there. So just giving some context of kind of historical, kind of where my views are with boards and committees, that I feel really, I have a lot of trust in my team that they're interacting and effectively delivering the information that's needed to the board and committee members. And so just want to share that on behalf of the team, and then just kind of sharing on the conversation as I'm kind of learning the different committees, times and historical stuff, if that's helpful context for everybody as well.
So as a reminder, as an executive finance committee, we did have this discussion 2 weeks ago, and that committee did agree that we were in favor of it. So we all think it's a great idea. And now we're bringing it to the rest of you who are perhaps not on the executive finance committee. But it is our recommendation that we approve this so that we can make this change starting July of 2024. Uh-oh. Richard, do you have a question or a comment? I see.
Yes,
Julie. Hey, go ahead. Yeah.
We're still for Tammy, the regional center, for next month. Then we have presentation for the advocacy seekers. And please speak up for yourself and not to trust anyone.
Good question.
And just looks like it, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and right now, Sally.
Right, Richard. Thank you.
Yes, welcome.
All right. Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the change in the schedule of advisory meetings for the board of directors?
I'll make the motion to accept the schedule change as proposed.
It's not Tina. Tina, your hand went. Do you have a question or did you want to?
No, I vote.
Okay.
I motion.
Will you second that motion then?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Bill, you're first on that. Tina, you're second on that. Any further discussion or questions? All right, not hearing or seeing any. All in favor of the revised committee schedule, please say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Richard, are you opposed?
I'm not sure.
Okay, you can abstain if you would like.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. All right, that motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll make sure to have all meeting materials and everything accurately and effectively communicate the changes. Thank you. All right, I am going to pass it over to our executive director, Jesse.
Thank you, Julie. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be super quick because we're a little behind schedule for our training. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. The first item this evening, I'm going to share my screen. I have a lot of excitement for what I'm about to share with you. We've had a large project that we've been doing. We've been sharing that information on all of our committees. We've undergone, with all of your support, all the board of directors, a strategic plan. You approved the strategic plan back in February. And so we're super excited. And what we've been working on since you approved our plan that we've worked on is we've been working on the design element with our consultant, Michelle Ware, consultation with George Stevens, who you see here this evening, on fine tuning all of the colors and the pictures and the designing with Michelle Ware's team. It's been such an adventure doing the design element and multiple revisions. And we finally I think we landed in a place that we're really proud of. And so our strategic development committee approved the design with some amendments. We made those modifications with the team, the consulting team, the design consultant. And so we're bringing it forward this evening for the board of directors to approve the actual design element. Is such a huge project for us that we just wanted the blessing of the board and a formal kind of adoption of the actual design. If the board decides to move forward with approving what I will share with you briefly, it's in the material folders as well. We'll get this released to our community and start our communication strategy, but we didn't want to overstep until the board gave the approval just for our records of the design. And so I'm going to share my screen and let's see if I did this correctly. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Do you see the strategic plan? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So what we have here is our strategic plan down to our branding guidelines, down to our pictures. We wanted to make sure that our pictures represented our diverse communities. We wanted to make sure they represented our different age groups that we serve. We wanted to bring in staff. We wanted to bring in board members, community members, individuals served. So there was a lot of thought put into every single element that you see on every page, in addition to our branding guidelines. And so we have our cover page, which we're proud of. We have our introduction. You see a joint letter here written on behalf of Julie, Bruce, and myself. Julie as the board president, Bruce as our chair of strategic development. In my position, we wanted to show our unity around a joint project that we put together in collaboration with all of you and our committees. So we did a nice warm welcome for everybody in the design. We fine-tuned the colors with Julie's help and vision. That we did a lot of work here to really fine-tune to make sure that it's our green and our logo colors that we really appreciate. We redid our mission, vision, and values. You have a copy of that in the folder this evening as well. We're really proud of our work that we did regarding our mission, vision, and value statement. You see our branding here, and I think I want to give credit to George Stevens, if I may, for I think he was the one that came up with our community, our future. So that branding really became our tagline for this project. So I want to give a proper thank you to George Stevens here this evening. You see our values here that we came up with, that we decided together collectively on this page. You have a page in here about our community, our future, where we're headed, with all of the revisions that were done here and the feedback. You have an information page about us, who we are as a regional center. And we also highlighted the planning process that we took on as a regional center. And then we have a quote here from an employee who's been with us for over 35 years. We wanted to highlight her expertise and her vision there as well. That's a picture of Donna, service coordinator, and her daughter, who's a manager with us. And so this generations of family at the regional center, that just really shows the commitment of people have for our regional center. So we're really proud to see Donna highlighted. And then we did about us section in here that you can see about our planning process. We have governance and leadership, and we showcased Sam. Thank you, Sam, for giving us permission in here and leadership and the committees. And we did a little plug in here so everyone knows for the board that we're continuously recruiting volunteers to serve on committees. And so we're really proud that we did a little recruiting there as well for anybody who's reading our publication. Where we are now, where we're headed. We have some stuff there for everybody. And then we have our goals. We have 4 goals, so you'll see them highlighted here on exactly what we're going to be doing. This is the public-facing document on our goals to enhance overall service delivery excellence. You see some photos here. Additional photos. So this is all about how we're enhancing. Wendy Lai, I believe you're here this evening as a parent and a community leader and former on the board. So we have a beautiful quote from Wendy and her son. So thank you, Wendy. Our second goal is to strengthen community engagement and advocacy for our services. So you see our goals and objectives. We also have pictures showcasing our different areas in here on our advocacy. Almost done here, everybody. I'm trying to be mindful of time, but I'm trying not to rush. So I appreciate you letting me go this evening for this. The third goal, which is enhancing our human resource and talent development. And so we got our goals and objectives that have been identified here. Again, this is the content you already approved. So I'm just kind of focusing more on the design elements for this evening. We see Yvonne here. Shout out to Yvonne and our CFO, Dara, and Frankie, an individual served. Senator Rubio, I believe. So really exciting to see the connections there being made. And then it leads us into our last goal, which is improving our operational efficiencies and technological advancements, really meaning bringing technology into our future and accountability and how we're going to monitor our metrics. So you'll see the goals and objectives. And then you have our IT team for technology. We plugged in Lucina. We got permission from Lucina. We put her on the spot. So we appreciate Lucina's flexibility. And then our reception team as our first point of contact for people contacting the regional center. And a really well done quote from Elena Sanchez, who's our executive director of the Parents Place, Family Resource and Empowerment Center. And then it goes to our acknowledgements here. We want to acknowledge our consultants and Erica for her work as a liaison. We wanted to do a shout out to our ad hoc committee for all the work that's been done over the past few months to make this possible. And then we have our additional shout outs here for all of our committees. Julie, Bruce, and myself and our consultants made a decision to not only just work with Strategic Development Committee, we made a choice to involve our entire board and every single committee in this process because we wanted it to be as collaborative as possible. And so I think that was a really good approach because it really shows our collective work together. So I was really proud of the approach that we took. And then our contacting us, our business hours, and then we put a little plug in here to let our community know that we're always available after our core business hours, including weekends and holidays, as we are available per our contract with the state to respond to emergencies and urgent situations. So that is our design element for where we landed. We're seeking the board's approval tonight to make a motion to adopt this design, and we would like to get it out to our community starting next week unless there was questions or discussion.
All right. Yes, a lot of hard work and many, many hours, more than I think we thought. Hey, Jesse, went into the design portion. We learned a lot.
Down to the types of greens. Yvonne taught me all different shades of green, different kinds of supplemental colors, down to fonts and pictures, but it was a lot of work. I think we were up to over 10 revisions possibly. So I want to thank, Michelle's not here yet. I'm going to let her know to join for the training coming up, but I'm really grateful for her team. She really worked with us. She was really collaborative. It's just when we look at it and the feedback I get from staff, when I look at it, it just shows, it brings me back to our strategic planning day when we were all together in the room. And it's like, this is exactly what we wanted. This is where we landed. So it's, we're proud of it. We've been doing a lot of work internally, pushing on our mission, vision, values for staff and really working on that, leading with that. And the next step is to get this public-facing document out. And then the plan is going to be housed under Strategic Development Committee with our board committee members. And we'll be utilizing project management software to help monitor those metrics and lots of exciting pieces. So the plan is done. We finished it. Our design is done. But we just want the support of the board to actually formally approve this for our records. And if there was anything that you had to add to that, so we can make sure that we're reflecting the home stretch, as I call it.
So what I'll do now is I'll ask for a motion in a second, and then any sort of questions or comments that board members have will be welcome. Do we have a motion to accept the strategic plan document, public facing document? You're making the motion, Tina?
Yeah, I have a motion.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I was second, Ms. Julie.
Thank you, Philip. Does anybody have any questions? Any comments?
I do.
Sure, go ahead, Sam.
Who believes this? Who are we going to who are we going to see this document or this practicing or whatever you call this?
Who is it going to be going out to?
Yeah.
Oh, great question. Everybody, basically. Jesse, do you want to take it?
I can. We're going to send it out to everybody, Sam. It's going to go to our community. We're going to put it on our website. We're going to put it, Yvonne's going to blast it to the community in constant contact. We're going to promote it at all of our meetings, committees. So we're going to get it out there, and we're going to have it translated in all of our languages as well. We're going to make sure that it's accessible to our community. Working on that.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought you were going to ask why there was no Star Wars on there, Sam.
Okay, go ahead, Karen.
I just want to say it looks really beautiful. Beautiful job, everyone. I know it takes a lot of time to go through many revisions and iterations of it, but it looks really clean. It looks really nice. Looks really pretty straightforward and easy to understand. I love the fresh colors and just the look of it. So congratulations, bravo to a really nice job on that.
Thanks. Yeah, as a reminder, all of the verbiage, so the mission, vision, values, goals, all of that there's no changes. It's everything that we had approved at a previous board meeting. So this is just the actual presentation of it, the public facing document that, makes it look all nice and pretty. So, all right, any other discussion before we call for the vote? All right. We have our first, we have our second. All in favor of approving the strategic plan public facing document, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. That was the last piece. All right, do we have Michelle here? This is perfect actually, because she is the amazing consultant that led us through this entire process, along with George, and we have him here tonight too. So it's just very apropos that she's here to present on this particular topic, which was proposed by Bruce originally. So strategies for effective and productive board meetings and the board's role in the strategic plan. So,
Julie, would it be okay if I finish one more item with Susan and then we turn over to the training? Would that be okay?
Yes.
I know, I went way over. I apologize.
That's okay.
I know, I'm so sorry. My executive record in the folder so everyone can access that. I just want to do one joint kind of item if we may, just because it's time sensitive. And I'm going to do one quick plug for everybody. On Sunday is our Parents Place Resource Information Fair. It's their 29th annual event, well attended. We're encouraging everybody to come. 1 to 4, I believe, is the time. So please keep that on your calendars if you're available. It's a great networking opportunity for our community. So I just want to do a plug there. And then I'll keep it really short, Julie and everybody. Susan, I know you can help me with this topic, but I just want to plant the seed quickly, if that's okay, Susan, and then I'll turn it over to you. We're working with our service provider community who wants to organize a rally. Right now is a really sensitive time for our service providers with some of the areas that we're seeing with the delay, the proposed delay of the rate implementation for service providers, that they desperately need it. There's also some the mandates that are being put on providers that are not funded. And so we're looking to partner with legislators to really have a large turnout on Friday, May 31st. We don't have the logistics yet. We're working on it. We have some leads with Senator Rubio's office, but we're providing our full support to our provider community to make this happen. So we just want to put it on your radar to kind of be mindful of Friday, May 31st. We're working actively behind the scenes to get some logistics and some solid areas solidified. In that regard, there's a video that's Susan's putting in the chat. So I just want to plant the seeds for everybody just to keep you informed. I think Nancy Bunker may be here as well. So I'll turn it over quickly to you, Susan, to kind of capture the essence of where we're headed.
It's just really important right now that our community be visible, because sometimes when there's a budget shortfall, everybody's clamoring for dollars and attention. And it's just really important that our community be visible. So if you take a minute to watch the video that is in the chat tomorrow, not tonight, but it kind of encapsulates the message that our people are important. If people making hamburgers are making $20 an hour and our rates are frozen, there's a real problem with equity, and we need to keep our rates equitable and fair to the people who are doing some of the hardest work in our community. So that's it in a nutshell. There's a lot more details, but it's planned for May 31st. So if you can just keep that date available, May 31st at 10 a.m. is our goal. And it'll be before our next meeting, so we can give you more details at that time, but please save that time. It's important that everybody participate, and we are really asking for the support of the board on this endeavor.
Is it going to be at the regional center?
That's one of the details we're still trying to work out, Tina, and we'll get that information. We'll get a flyer out as soon as we have that all worked out. But in the meantime, please, please, please save the date.
Okay. Just quick question, Susan. So the flyer is going to be mailed to all the clients, regional center clients?
Yes, it'll be e-blasted to the clients. I think it'll be on the website. Will it be on the website, Jesse?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll make sure everybody gets word.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
And so everybody
That
knows.
link doesn't work. I tried the link.
We'll put a new one in there. I also informed the other 20 regional centers. I informed ARCA, and we already have about 4 or 5 regional centers who are willing to support us. So we can probably make it big. I want to give shout out to Karen here tonight for giving us the idea to kind of work with other regional centers, trying to bring in large numbers if we can to demonstrate the importance of this. And so we already have about 4 or 5 that are willing to provide full supports. They're even providing their legislative supports as well if we need those connections. So we really just need to solidify kind of in our region around kind of who's going to kind of help work with us. And then from there, we can expand it. And then I think it will all kind of come together. But I think it's timely. And ARCA, takeaway from Grassroots Day, there's a really big push to kind of help mobilize our local communities to really help to be a really active out there and to put attention on this important area. So just want to say thank you. We'll keep everybody updated. But I know Nancy, Susan, and Chris, our BAC chair, have been really active leading it. So I want to say thank you to them for all the supports.
You know, Susan did a great job. I just wanted to add that I'm very excited and impressed, Jesse, and not to toot your horn right here in the middle of the board meeting, but you've been very supportive of the community, and I think that is what it's about. So I want to thank you. And again, we really want to get the people that are served, the families, the professionals. We did this 15 years ago, and we had definitely close to about 200 people outside of Senator Hernandez's office, and that's our hope. So we're hoping to get everybody there. More information to follow, but save the date for the 31st of May and put your tennis shoes on, I keep saying.
And I put a new link in. Hopefully that one will work.
It does. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
31st of May. All right, Jesse, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
I'm good. Julie and I have the honor and privilege of introducing Michelle Ware, who we were talking about earlier in good ways, Michelle, for the strategic plan design that was just approved by the board. And I know you're here tonight to do a training on how to be an effective board member and effectuating a strategic plan. So I apologize we ran over tonight. We just had a lot of committee business items we had to cover. But we're excited to have you here, Michelle. And I know you have a PowerPoint for us. And so I think Elba, Eric, can make sure you can share your screen. And then we can turn it over to you for our official training tonight.
Thank you, everyone. I see so many familiar faces that was part of the process. And hello to everyone else. And this is a training, but more of a discussion. I am a little bit about myself. I'm pretty sure you've heard a little bit about me, but I am president of the Commercial Real Estate Association, Building Owners and Managers Association. I'm a strategic planning consultant, and I serve on many boards. Board service is very close to my heart, which is why I decided to consult on the side and helping boards become more strategic. So I did put together a presentation for you, but I would like for you to ask questions. You can stop me at any time. I know that regional center boards may be different from other nonprofits and associations because you have things that you have to cover. maybe more so than some other boards. But just use this as a guide for where you want to get yourself towards and structuring your meetings so that you can have more of a strategic focus. Let's say today, every single meeting should be a strategic discussion at some point. And your meeting has already run long, leaving not enough time to then talk about your strategic plan. And so you have to look at how you're going to organize yourselves and your meetings in a way that your strategic plan becomes paramount. It's your main discussion. So we'll talk about that. You can just interrupt and ask questions at any time along the way. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's discuss. 1 second. Before I share my screen, let me stop. I'm sharing the right screen. Can you see it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so the first part, we're going to talk about developing strategic board agendas. Your agenda governs what you discuss. So if you do not set your agenda up in a strategic way, it is unlikely you'll be discussing any portion of your strategic plan. So I'm going to cover 4 areas. I'm going to talk about board meetings. It's definitely my play on words. I look at a lot of board agendas, and sometimes I just think I just couldn't imagine sitting through that meeting. If I'm only listening to reports, I'm not engaging in dialogue, I'm not problem solving, then I'm not being strategic and I'm not serving as a board member. So we'll talk a little bit about board meetings. Now, your meetings, not assuming your meetings aren't great, but we'll talk about some common red flags when meetings are no longer strategic. Philip, is your hand up?
Yeah, excuse me, I think you spelled board wrong. I think it's B-O-A-R-D. But instead you put board as like you feel the board, you got nothing to do. So you make that correction. Thank you.
I spelled it that way on purpose. So it's a play on words, meaning sometimes board meetings are boring. And we want board members to be strategic discussions. We want you to look at the clock and you ran out of time because you were so engaged in your conversation. So it's spelled correctly, it's just a different use of the words. But thank you. The second area is strategic agendas. We'll talk a little bit about how to align your board meeting agenda with your strategic plan. And then we'll go into the board's role in achieving strategic goals. And we'll have some discussion time, but as I said, please interrupt me at any time. Raise your hand or just chime in so we can have a dialogue. So my objective in this training is to educate you, which is discuss the significance of aligning meeting agendas with your strategic goals, to also equip you with the tools and methods to create effective agendas, and to enhance your board member engagement and your experience by getting you a little bit more focus on your strategic plan. First, we'll talk about board meetings. Engagement. Board engagement is linked to discussions. Boards are formed to solve problems, to engage, and to have dialogue. So besides a limited amount of time where you're listening to reports or presentations such as these, the majority of your time should be talking with one another, talking through your plan, talking through your challenges, talking about your clients, talking about your center, talking about the community, in the ways that you can make an impact through your strategic plan. If you are listening more than you are talking, you are missing an opportunity as a board. I added up your board time. Let's say so far this quarter, you've spent about 13 hours in board meetings. That's if you end tonight on time, which you may not. And right now you're spending about 9 of those hours listening. And we want to get you more engaged with dialogue and strategic discussions. So here's some signs or some things you can ask yourself. And the questions may be yes or no. And they're questions only you know. I'm not asking you to answer the questions out loud, but just give these questions some thoughts. Is there more time spent listening to presentations than spent on discussions? In your meetings, are you unsure of how exactly you contribute to the success of the center? Does your agenda read report, 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 and another report? Is the authority for decisions, regardless of what the decision is, unclear or unspoken? Are there celebrations? Is there joy in your meetings? Is the board assessing itself annually? At some point every year, are you looking at your work and looking at yourselves and assessing your work for your center? Does the meeting produce actionable items? When you leave your meeting tonight, do you have things that you have to do before the next board meeting? Or are you off the grid for 30 days? Is the board engaged in between meetings? Is the agenda identical to the last meeting's agenda, or even the one before that? Do board members leave feeling that nothing is a challenge? Do board members leave feeling that everything is a challenge? Do you remember what you discussed at the last meeting without looking at the minutes? Is there at least one story told about a life your organization has touched recently? And are you happy when the meeting is over? And those are just questions to reflect for yourself as we go through this presentation. Effective board meetings are less about boardroom proceedings and more about forward thinking. Real governance is not just about meeting protocols and checklists of things we need to get done, but about meeting the future prepared. And this is an unknown quote from someone famous, I'm sure. So let's dive into part 2, which strategic agendas, elevating your board meetings. Here's a few tips for productive meetings and being strategic meetings. First, lightening the agenda, focusing on essential topics. And I'm going to give you tips for each of these areas as we continue through the presentation. Reframe your reports. Are your reports concise and focus on strategic insights? Do your reports somehow tie back to your strategic plan? Discussing one strategic goal per meeting. You have 4 strategic goals and you have, I think, 11 meetings. I know this fiscal year you were dark in November. I'm not sure if that's every year, but you have at least 11 meetings. 4 of those meetings at minimum should be discussed for in-depth discussion on one of your strategic goals. And then consider redesigning your agenda. I'm going to show you what your agenda looks like now and give you some suggestions on how you can start to slowly make some changes. Make sure that the items on your agenda are linked to your strategic goals. Here are the parts of a strategic agenda and what should be included in it. A consent agenda. Your consent agenda is a tool that's used in board meetings where you streamline routine business. And I'm going to go into each of these areas. Mandatory board agenda items. I know that there are things as a center that you have to discuss and vote on, and those should be all grouped together in the same area. Review the strategic plan. Your strategic plan should be reviewed at every single board meeting. Progress updates. Consider this as your executive director's report, which we'll get into a little bit more. Make sure your agenda items are linked to your strategic goals, which I said before. Key decisions and the strategic implications. As you're making decisions, always asking yourself and providing opportunity to link back, how does this decision impact our strategic plan? And discussion on strategic alignment and your big item. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Your consent agenda. So a consent agenda is a tool that's used where you can approve items all at one time that don't require a lot of input. They're non-controversial, they're routine, and you have one single vote on those items. Typical items in a consent agenda include the minutes, financial reports. This is not to be confused with a financial update or review. The reports need to be approved by the board. That's part of your fiduciary responsibility. But you don't need to discuss line item by line item. As board members, you have an obligation to read the packets that are sent to you ahead of time. And so either your treasurer, whoever your finance person is that does maybe some type of review from time to time during the meeting, it's more a strategic discussion of where your resources are and how they're being used, or any big items that they need to call to the board's attention. But your routine financial reports, for the most part, should be part of a consent agenda. Any routine reports, committee updates, anything that's not requiring board action is often part of a consent agenda. Routine resolutions or motions as well. Contracts and agreements. If you have regular contracts that need to be approved, they should just be a part of the consent agenda unless there's something materially different about them, or a new contract. If it's something that's routine, it should be part of the consent agenda. And any routine business updates, maybe it's staffing, maybe it's facilities, it's just things maybe the staff or committees need the board to know. And it's all approved as one package in one agenda item called the consent agenda. Any questions about consent agendas?
Yeah, so we're going to approve all of this kind of bundle of routine business with one motion.
With one motion. The motion on the floor would be, I move to approve the consent agenda. And then if there's any discussion, there won't be discussion on the actual consent agenda itself. What you could say, Bruce, is, say for instance, there was something in the financial report that you felt was material and that the board should discuss. You would then say, I would like to approve the consent agenda and I would like to pull the financial report. So then everyone approves everything else and the financial report becomes agenda item number 1 on your agenda now. So the board has the ability to pull anything from the consent agenda prior to the packet being approved.
Okay, so if you've looked at our agendas from previous board meetings, you can see a lot of this is routine business. Would you say that committee reports, things like that, can be pulled out and parked in the consent agenda and just approved routinely and we can move on?
Yes. Unless there is something that the board absolutely needs to discuss. If it's non-controversial, it's information. It just seems like it's not that long that you guys spend 5 minutes on a committee update, but 30 minutes in a meeting that sometimes is 55 or 60 minutes is half your meeting.
Right. Now, would that include the executive director's report and the president's report in the consent agenda?
Yeah, so we're going to get more into the executive director's report. It would include any routine items he wanted to share. So we're going to talk about reframing what your executive director's report should look like.
Okay, all right.
I just saw a hand, but then it went down. Karen.
So it sounds to me sort of like the way that the county board of supervisors holds their meetings, where they do everything in one fell swoop and they hold items for discussion, but they approve everything all in one fell swoop.
Yes. So you're only pulling an item that requires discussion. You're not discussing it for the sake of discussing it. If it doesn't require a decision and it's not absolutely pertinent to have a discussion about, it's part of the consent agenda package.
Now, as far as the arrangement of the items in the agenda, towards the end of the board meeting, I, at least, am feeling a little burned out and my focus is diminished. I would like to see the discussion items placed at the first part of the board meeting and then the other routine items or the consent agenda at the latter end when we're all kind of bushed after a couple of hours.
I would like to see your meetings be shorter. They're entirely too long. So I'm going to talk about that too. Like I did a breakdown of how long each of your meetings are. And one meeting was 135 minutes. That's over 2 hours in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you all. I've worked all day. I'm not in my best mind in the evening.
Yeah.
And so my time in the evening needs to be maximized, and it needs to be intentional and purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
Anything over 2 hours at the end of your day, it's just long. And we need to figure out a way to restructure your agenda so that that 1 hour and 30 minutes is the most impactful 1 hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, I'd agree on that, Michelle.
Yeah, makes for a long day. And most people aren't most productive in the evening. And understandably, you all need to have evening meetings. But we just want to cut the time down a bit. And I'm going to share a little bit more. I broke down, you'll see some charts of how you're spending your time.
Let's say that if the board directory meetings, say that for instance, the board directory meeting starts at 7:15, and then it should end like around 9 something, like 2.
You would start 7:15 on time. As long as you have a quorum, the meeting starts. And by 8:45, you're doing final comments and wrap up, and you're definitely off by 9.
Yeah, because that's the issue that we need to bring up with the rest of the board.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I'll keep moving, and we'll get to talk a little bit more about those things.
Okay.
So your organization of your agenda can be however, I'm just going in the order that I had it, Bruce, but you all can structure your meeting however best works for you. I agree. I'd rather have my heavy topics in the beginning because you're at your highest energy when the meeting starts. It only goes down from there. It doesn't go up. So your mandatory agenda items, as I've seen, you all have your public comment time. I don't know if people actually come in for public comment or not. But you allocate 5 minutes for that, and then you have some legal and compliance related discussions that you have to have. It would be great if those can be grouped. I don't know the timing of them, but maybe not having them at every single meeting. But it'll take some time to really look at your agenda and how you can restructure it to make it most effective. And then you review your strategic plan. It can be brief. It doesn't need to go into detail, but we remember by repetition. Everyone should know your vision and mission. And by repeating it constantly, you will come to see that over time, you know your vision and mission. And this is actually your vision and mission. And you go over your 4 goals, and you could just give your 4 goals. You could restate your goals and your objectives, strategies. However you want to do it, how brief or long you want this portion to be. But every meeting needs to restate your strategic plan at the beginning of the meeting. So here's where we'll discuss the executive director reports. So I said yes to, it was a 2-part answer to your question, Bruce, about the ED's report. If the ED is reporting on routine matters, which I'm sure there are just information highlights that the board needs to have, that's what's written in the report and part of the consent agenda, which the board receives ahead of time. The rest of the ED report, which is the verbal portion of the report, are the progress updates. It's a summary of current progress towards your strategic goals. And the report should come in writing, like I said, prior to the meeting. It should include bullet points, not long paragraph reports. Bullet points, which are highlights of what's been accomplished in each area since the last discussion. It may be a couple of bullet points, it may be numerous ones, but this keeps everyone tied in and keeping the buy-in and the energy around the strategic plan as well, because every report from your ED is linked to the last report. They're updates. It should be 1 to 2 pages, bullet points max, so that you just pull out the highlights from the report. And this allows the board to monitor progress on the mission and the goals. And his time should be used to answer questions, to engage with the board on what's happening with the strategic plan, to discuss some of the challenges, to discuss maybe some of the resources he needs, in regards to the strategic plan as well. And then highlight key achievements. You know, you should be celebrating when good things happen. You should be celebrating, maybe giving highlights to some teams who are just, you know, hitting it out of the park. Highlights to maybe some of the projects or programs that have happened since the last meeting. And then data and metrics demonstrating progress. So I like quick charts. You know, we put it as one of the strategic goals that you will receive written reports, and that's great. Those written reports is what goes into the consent agenda. We're not reading reports in board meetings. So cute, quick slides and quick graphics to show visually how you're performing. I'm not sure which tool you all decided to use, but whichever one, you can make some graphic slides out of it so that Jesse can share some of the progress in the area. So you want a checklist to show where you are with your strategies that you're currently working on. You want a dashboard. Of course, this doesn't apply to you all. It's just giving you some examples. A quick dashboard where you can see some of the KPIs of your current goals and how it progressed over time. So each time the KPI comes back to the meeting, you can see the progress that's happening in that particular, you know, goal or strategy area. A status report. Where are we? What's at risk? Are we in budget or are we going over budget in areas? What does the scheduling look like? What other resources did we think we have and maybe we don't have that we now need that maybe the board can help with? What are the issues? What are the problems we need to resolve? The board is the best source of input. And especially as a staff who lives and breathes this every day, having a fresh perspective by coming to your board who's been engaged and involved in all the areas of the strategic plan, they can often look at things in a different perspective than staff can because it's still fresh to them every 30 days. So it's a great time to discuss issues and to problem solve together. And then discuss the timeline. Where are we on our goals? Are we progressing as we plan to? Did we hit some road bumps that we need to figure out how to get around or go over? For staff, you know, we put in due dates and timelines in the strategic plan, but we did discuss you have to be nimble because we have the outside universe working against us. We have staffing resources, we have changes. So as long as we're nimble and we're communicating, this is the perfect time to communicate what's happening with our plan, which is at the board meeting. The next area is agenda items linked to goals. Each agenda item in the board meeting, remember we got rid of all the business because we did that in consent agenda. We pulled down anything that the board said, nope, I don't want this one in the consent agenda. I want to discuss it. We did all of that. Jesse told us where we are with our plan. We reaffirmed our plan. We got a status update. And now we want to talk about some of the projects that we're working on. The strategic plan is not just for the staff. If you look at it, there are a lot of areas that there should be a board staff partnership, board committee partnership, committee staff partnership. The entire organization owns and is responsible for the successful execution of this plan. So everyone at some point should have a role in working in it. So you need to structure discussions around what can you all do to get involved to help move the plan forward. It's a 3-year plan. It could be a 2-year plan. It could be a 5-year plan, depending on how much energy and effort and resources you put into it, and having discussions about how you all work together to move the plan forward. So you'll talk about how each item relates to a specific part of the strategic plan. Let me give you an example. You want to have a new system for being able to track issues that are coming in to the center and the time it takes to resolve them. Now, maybe the staff has found that some issues, just no matter what they've done, are still taking longer than what you thought it would take to resolve them. That becomes a board strategic item. That becomes a topic of discussion for input to figure out how, as an organization, how do we overcome this obstacle or this issue that's not working out the way that we thought that it would. Because you're having an active dialogue and discussion about real world implications of your original thoughts of what was going to happen with your strategic plan. And then you discuss the outcomes from it. Okay, the board has come up with suggestions. We've talked about it. This is great. Maybe you brought those staff members into that board meeting for that particular issue. And now they have a takeaway. We're going to go back and we're going to try and implement this in a different way with board feedback. And then the discussion of how this impacts the strategic goals. Maybe we said that we were going to have this system in place by this date, but now we can't. Everyone is on the same page because we all discussed it. We all have a different plan of action. And now maybe we're going to change that due date or that deadline date based on the information that came in. So each item is linked to something that the staff is working on, something that a committee is working on as it relates to the strategic plan. Any questions before I keep going? Okay. The next item on the agenda are key decisions and implications. Upcoming decisions to be made in the meeting. Maybe the staff needs a change in budget for a particular project. This is where they come in and talk to the board about it. Okay, well, we thought this particular item was going to be $10,000 for this software. Now we found that it's $75,000. That's a huge implication. So then how do we come up with the 75, or how do we reallocate resources, or do we put this now off a little bit further until we have the resources to implement this? Or are there other ways to do it? Analysis of how decisions impact strategic objectives. Let's say there's something, it's hard to say because I'm not in your field, but let's just say there's something comes from left field that we had no clue, pandemic, right? No one prepared for the pandemic. The pandemic happened. If the pandemic or anything similar happens to you now, there's a huge impact on your strategic objectives. But you don't ditch your strategic plan. You do an analysis of, if we have to reallocate resources to deal with this global pandemic, how does that decision impact our strategic objectives? What changes do we internally need to make so that we still accomplish our goal under these new circumstances that we are forced to operate under? And then it's also a discussion about potential risk and their management strategies as well. Time resources may need to be shifted somewhere else so that maybe you're not working on this one thing. What is that management implication? And by not working on this one thing, what risks are we at, or do we have? And then do we decide that we're willing to take that risk because working on this item is more important? And discussion on alignment. This is really, you've taken in a lot of information. You've had a lot of discussion about your strategies, and it's been lots of input and great dialogue. And this is where we reflect. There may be some things that you weren't really comfortable with that were decided, or maybe something you don't understand. This is time to reflect, for board members to discuss what will happen between the meeting with the strategic goals, encouraging feedback and how we can improve for future meetings, summarizing what we discussed. There should always be a summary of what you discussed during your strategic portion of your meetings. And then reaffirming your commitment to the plan. You did a plan in 2023, in 2024. By 2026, the world could look completely different. Are you still committed to the plan that you had? Do you need to make some changes? Just because you did it in 2023 doesn't mean we can't take a step back and reassess our goals that we set for ourselves. Remember, this is a living, breathing document. It doesn't go on the shelf. It's part of how we operate as a center now. Are we still committed to what we said we were committed to? Now, here's what you were just talking about, Bruce. This is what I call the big agenda item. This is where you're going to spend the bulk of your time, your most lengthy discussion. And that is speaker board training, which I think is important, but I do think you're spending too much time in your board meeting. Maybe there's another board day or meeting day where you just do training. Do all your board members need the same training? People come and go at different times. Maybe there's a different way to do board training so that it isn't taking so much of your meeting time. Or if you have 11 meetings, is it 11 meetings? Does anyone know? 10. Okay. You have 10 meetings. 4 or 5 of those, I would say half of those meetings we're having an in-depth discussion about a single goal. The other 5, the big item may be board training. Maybe a couple of those are board training. I don't know how big your audit discussions are. All of my boards, they're very big discussions. That's the big agenda item for us. Operations for some of us, because we have different contracts, is a big agenda item for us. So whatever your big agenda item is where you devote the majority of your time to. You have speakers that need to come in to present on certain topics or areas to you. That's a big agenda item. If you want to move that to the front after your consent agenda, and you quickly go through your strategic plan goals and then have your speaker or do your big item and then run through your other items too, that's great. But that is where the bulk of your time would be committed to in your meeting. So this is your current meeting structure. So I went through this fiscal year. Your fiscal year starts in July. And you are spending 60% of your time in presentations and trainings, which means you aren't doing board work. The other percentage of your time are community announcements, various type of announcements that I saw. Your roll call, agenda minutes, things that would be great to roll into the consent agenda. And your board president and ED share 15 minutes in each meeting. I don't know if it's a consistent 15 minutes or not. But that is your current meeting structure. Here's what a strategic meeting structure looks like. 43% of the discussion, well, I'll take that back. Your final agenda item is 43% of your meeting. It's the biggest portion of your meeting time. So you see the difference? Right now, you're listening and you're hearing reports and you're hearing trainings, the majority of your meeting. When I want you all to have discussions and dialogue for almost half of your meeting. I say almost half because some of these other discussions are also related to your strategic plan. This one is just one big item. So rather this is your strategic plan, your board training, your audit, all those big items we talked about. This is your final big agenda item, and all of these other things are pretty much equal to that time. I only put 6% of time towards consent agenda, which I really would like to see less, but it's just because, especially when you first start, people will tend to pull things from the consent agenda more often until they feel comfortable, and those consent agenda items become discussions. As time goes on, that piece of the pie will become less because everyone will be more accustomed to reading reports ahead of time and approving the agenda as a whole. Okay. The way this is structured, so including today's meeting, you've spent 790 minutes. I like to break things down to minutes. That's about 13 hours in meetings. This is the same time. This absolutely both adds up to the same 790 minutes. The only way that I structured it is you have your meeting times vary, okay? In July, your meeting was almost 2 hours. It was an hour in September, August, an hour in September. It sort of varies. If you plan for 90 to 85 minutes in each meeting and structured in this way, you're not spending any more time than you were before. You just don't have long meetings, and you're for sure done with your meeting in an hour and a half. And I'll send Jesse the charts where the data actually comes from. So we're not asking you to spend more time in the meeting. We're actually asking you to spend less time in the meeting, making the time even across your meetings, and having them be structured in a way that you're getting more out of the meeting, you're giving more to the organization in the meeting, and everyone is working towards your strategic goals.
So it seems like, yeah, I have a question. It seems like we're going to have to be ruthlessly punctual with the meeting schedule. And if we've got 10 minutes allocated to one item, you got to get it done in 10 minutes, right?
If you know that this meeting will start when it starts and it's going to end at whatever time, you're less apt to make a concerted effort to be on time. If you know that the meeting starts at 7:15 and there's a quorum at 7:16, it's going to start with or without you, you'll start being there at 7:15. If you honor your meeting time, so I'm not probably like most execs. If I say a meeting is an hour and a half, I'm going to try and end it in an hour and 28 minutes and give you 2 minutes back. You can set your watch on the meetings. Therefore, I have an excellent attendance rate. They show up on time because they know no matter what, I'm getting them out on time. It's a learned behavior. And especially if if you're not used to starting on time, and everyone has to be committed to starting on time. I will start my board meeting even if the chair isn't there.
Yeah.
The next person in line in authority will start that meeting. The chairman of the board knows if he's not on time, the meeting will start without him. As soon as we have a quorum, we're gone. We're done because we have to get out because people have families, they have jobs, they have places to be. And even if that place to be is in front of the TV.
But each agenda item has to be as strict as starting and ending.
Yes.
If you say we're going to allocate 10 minutes to talking about one item, at the end of 10 minutes, you go to the next one.
It'll be gone.
So I tend to have everyone have their unofficial timekeeper that always moves forward, or if it's a voting item, we have the person that calls for the question so that we can vote and move on. And you all do a great job of having your time blocks. Everyone knows the time block of this. And when that time is up, we keep moving. It's a muscle. And once you build that muscle, you will see how much more you will get done in an hour and a half. You will see how productive your meetings become. And you'll be committed to the time because you know it's an hour and a half. I'm going to be focused for that hour and a half, and then I'm off. I'm done.
So that means that we need to all try to work on setting the right time on starting the meeting exactly at 7:15. And once it starts at 7:15, it should start right on time. Exactly.
Yes. So you open the room at 7 and you should start arriving between 7 and 7:10 so that at 7:15, Julie can call the meeting to order as long as she has a quorum. Roll call should be done by your secretary. It doesn't need to be done. You don't need to call out roll. That person can do head counts of who's there, who's late, who's sent regrets.
Yeah.
Who's ever responsible for making sure you have a quorum, lets Julie know, Madam President, we have a quorum, and she calls the meeting to order, and you get to business.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. This is Tina, by the way.
Hey, Tina.
Hey, Michelle.
So the role of board members, elevating your board meetings. Your role is an executive board partnership. The board monitors progress, adapts strategies as needed, and provides oversight and mainly support to your executive director, ensuring that the organization stays on track to achieve its long-term goals. So let's go over some of the key board roles. Setting direction, we did that. You set your strategic plan, you know where you're going, you know your mission, your vision, and what your goals are for the next few years. This role involves defining your long-term vision, your strategic goals, participated in the strategic planning process. Some of you were directly involved, but all of you were indirectly involved and informed along the way. You've adopted your plan, you're in agreement on. You're constantly assessing, and that's where your discussions come in. You all are assessing your external environment. Your board has an amazing composition of both individuals served, families, service providers, everyone is getting input from the external environment. There should be discussions where you're just talking about what's happening in the news, what's happening in the government, what's happening with the budget, what's happening legislatively. It's just discussion time to really assess what is happening that could put you at risk where your strategic plan is concerned. That's the board's role, to have those discussions when you are together. Policy development. Board members develop and approve the policies that govern the organization. And the policies could cover how you govern the organization, your financial management, your human resources, how you deliver programs, risk management, etc. Policies provide a framework to be consistent and accountable and in compliance with, I know you all have a lot of legal and regulatory requirements as well. And then the board also reviews the policies, I would say at least on an annual basis, the major policies of the organization, to make sure you don't need to, make any changes and are things operating in the way that you intended them to. The board is responsible for resource allocation, which the main resource is the budget. The board members oversee those resources, including financial, human, any assets to the organization that support the organization's mission and vision. You improve your annual budget, your investment strategies, any major expenditures, and making sure that they're all in line with the strategic goals. If you aren't discussing the strategic goals, you don't know what they aren't governing your agenda, then how do you know you're making decisions that are in line with it? Risk management. Board members identify and assess risk and mitigate them, including financial, operational, legal, regulatory, reputational. Your reputation is very important, as you all well know. You establish risk management policies and procedures and controls. Performance monitoring. You are responsible for overseeing the performance of the organization against its goals. You all will have a list of KPIs. Are you reaching those KPIs? For those of you, I'm saying KPIs, your key performance indicators, the numbers that you agree on. If we reach these numbers as an organization, that means we're successful. Are we constantly working towards achieving those KPIs? You'll receive regular reports, even if they're in your consent agenda. You have financial reports, program reports. You're responsible for reading those reports. They don't have to be read to you in the board meeting for you to be responsible for them. Your duty and your obligation is to read everything that comes in the packet that is sent to you for your board meetings. It also involves monitoring what the actual results versus what was planned, and identifying variances and trends and taking the actions needed to address any gaps or challenges. And the board holds the management team accountable for achieving the performance targets and upholding standards of excellence. Evaluation and adaptation. Board members conduct evaluations or assessments on impact. I know that we built into the strategic plan many surveys. So when you get the survey packets back, based whether it was service, access to services, whatever surveys that are being sent to you, read them and be prepared to act on them as well. Board members support innovation, out-of-the-box thinking. That's why I had said before, when staff brings maybe a challenge and they aren't able to figure it out, or they just want a different set of eyes, that's where you all come in. We're learning, we're adaptable as an organization. That's the board's responsibility. And for creating an environment of continuous improvement, of always wanting to be better. We're great at serving our clients. We want to be even better. What more can we do? That's the board's responsibility. Executive director support and oversight. The staff cannot be successful with the organization or the strategic plan without your ED having the utmost support from the board. Responsible for guidance and partnering with him There should be meetings between board meetings discussing strategic objectives or programs or just knowing what keeps them up at night. The best board knows what keeps their executive director up at night because those are the problems they're trying to help he or she solve for. The board is responsible for the annual performance review of the executive director as well. And then stakeholder communication. This is where it becomes very important, having these discussions that make you excited about your strategic plan and what you're doing. Your strategic plan says we're going to be amazing in delivering services to our community. That's basically what it says. And so if you're doing it well, you're excited to tell your family what the center is doing, to tell anyone who will listen what the center is doing. That's communicating. It's staff's, responsibility for marketing, the website, and so forth. But direct influence from those who are actively engaged with the organization is the best marketing tool ever. You're making sure that your individuals served and their families and your vendors and your community-based organization know what's happening in the organization and if they're excited about what's happening. You also want them to know when you're having challenges. If you don't tell people what's happening, they will make it up. And usually when they make it up, it is not in your favor. So it's communicating both positive experiences and also some of the challenges, because you never know, maybe they're able to help you. So stakeholder communication is very important, and it needs to be very deliberate as well. And then finally, succession planning. No one wants to replace the CEO. It happens. We hope your executive is here forever, but life happens. And if life happened tomorrow, what is your plan? It's a responsibility for the board to have a plan for when the unforeseen does happen and you need to replace key staff positions or even key board roles. What happens if, your whole top leadership or executive committee of your board leaves? What do you do? So you need to have a succession plan in place as well. And that's my presentation. Any more questions? What else can I answer for you? I covered it all?
Yeah.
Well, could we return to evaluation and adaptation? I can see evaluation working on several different levels. Evaluation of how we're succeeding with the plan or the goals, or are we succeeding with our objectives? Are we fulfilling them? Evaluation of us as a board, or is the board working with the plan, and are we doing things that will advance the success of the plan? Or evaluation of the meetings. Are the meetings fulfilling what we need to do to advance our strategy? Would you say those are all three?
All of them.
Perspectives?
All of them. You're responsible for all of them. Whether this center is working well or not is the board's responsibility.
Michelle, just a comment. I'm processing and thinking a lot, but I really think you've given us some really important stuff to think about. The irony is this is coming after a very long meeting, and this would have been a wonderful meeting. And selfishly for me, I get up at 4:30 every morning. So by the time this time rolls around, I'm running on fumes, and I want to be bidding board meeting. But I love the fact that let's get the necessary evils, minutes, approval, etc., in consent. I think is a brilliantly efficient way to do it. But it's going to take us to be willing to make change, and also to be willing to give timekeeper, facilitator, meter, and say, okay, guys, time's up.
Yeah.
And we have to be willing to accept that. We have to be willing to really prepare for these meetings, to do all the reading so that we can, with good conscience and responsibility, approve and make a consent vote. So there's a lot of things that we're going to have to think and process. But I absolutely love the direction that you're challenging us on. So I think it's absolutely terrific.
Do one thing at a time. Commit to first shortening your meeting. And then make a list of each thing you're going to commit to. If you try to do this all in one meeting, you guys are going to go into shock. Like it's going to be debilitating because it's so different. If you adapt one thing after the other, it will naturally happen. This presentation, fortunately, I'm on vacation, so I can stay up all night. But I thought I'm starting the conversation at 8:30 at night. They have to be exhausted, but it's perfect because the message that I'm giving you is exactly right. What did you talk about today in your strategic plan? Probably nothing.
You know, we approved the format and the form, which is not to take away from the huge amount of work that it took to get here. But I just love the
But
fact
it's
that
not. Yeah, it's not actively talking about what it is you all need to engage in. So I gave you a lot. I made a couple of changes to the slides. I'll send it. I can give you any materials. I can help put some structures together for you. And like I said, do not try to do this overnight, but you have to commit to all making the change so that you aren't leaving exhausted and you're leaving fulfilled and you're leaving excited about what you're doing, and your meetings will become so much more purposeful.
Exactly. I like the way that you did your presentation tonight, Michelle.
Thank you, Tina.
So, Michelle,
yes,
is there any method for ending the board meeting?
Oh, yeah.
We've discussed all of this, but we want to be able to then bring something forward to the next meeting.
Yeah.
So if you structure it the way that you first said, which I agree is probably great, move your big item first. Because if you look through the, I think Julie has the PowerPoint too. When you look through the bottom, and the last item is a summary to talk about the key points. You know, if you've had a lot of engaging discussions, hopefully they're energetic. There should be some disagreements. There should be some bargaining to get to results. Someone needs to be summarizing that, so that the last thing you all do is discuss the summary and key points and reaffirm you're committed to the strategic plan. That's how you end your meeting.
Okay.
Well, thank you again. I told Julie I always love to come and talk to you all. I do strategic plans and then people ride off into the sunset. I never know if they implemented it. It's hard to see. So to know that you all are committed and want to know what to do and the right things to make this plan happen that I absolutely believe in too, it's really gratifying to me too. So thanks for having me come back. And anytime, if I can help you, please reach out.
Okay, Michelle.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Thank you, Michelle.
Bye, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Board, I think we have a lot of opportunities ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
We do indeed.
We do indeed.
Yes. And I think we'll share out that presentation, the slide deck, right, Jesse?
Yes.
For everybody. And I have a feeling that along with the strategic plan that, we could really do a lot based off of that particular presentation. The wheels are spinning, but there's not enough grease up there right now. I need some sleep.
Julie, just a thought. I think this
Yeah.
would be a great follow-up discussion for Strategic Development Committee.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to see if we can put some time on the agenda to review, okay, what's the key takeaway, and maybe take Michelle's challenge of what would be if we're going to do one to start, which one, and then kind of lay that out. Just if the agenda would allow for that, I think that'd be really a good follow-up to this conversation.
Strategic development agendas are notoriously concise. I think there'll be plenty of time for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So we can add that too. And we'll start the discussion. We'll start the discussion there. And anybody who's got any thoughts, anything that kind of has popped into your brain, write it down, send me an email, and we'll just take any and all sort of thoughts, reflections, just bullet point ideas. Just let's just get it all, and we'll just compile it, and we'll just start from there. Because I think we could do a lot.
Yeah, it's going to be profound.
Yeah,
change.
I would agree. I would agree. Probably one of the best meetings we've ever had.
Mhm.
She gave us a lot to think about.
Absolutely, Tina. Absolutely. And I got to tell you, you know what? I've been getting texts from my kids going, "How much longer, Mom?" You know, so like I'm right there with you. Like my son,
I know.
told him, I was like, "I've got about 10 minutes, buddy," and he goes, "Okay." So I'm all for that too. You know, we're all here, giving up our time for, you know, a cause that is, you know, really means a lot to us. We want to be here, but you know, I think we can make some efficiencies.
Yeah.
All right. You all have my email address, so if you have any thoughts or whatever, just send them my way, and we'll start the discussion in strategic development, and we'll go from there.
Keep rolling. All right.
Yep.
Keep rolling.
Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Thank you all.
Bye, Julie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.